Day 18, Radville BMX, 30-day, 30 bike, old school BMX challenge. Today in the lineup, we have a Redline RL-20II, 1988. Let's get into it. So first off, this is a rebuilt Redline. I believe the frame to be powdered black. I don't believe that to be original. Even though 1988 isn't that long ago, that frame is just in way too good a shape, so I believe it's been powdered. I believe the decals are repop, and I believe the decals are okay. Had to do some corrections on these. In fact, I could be wrong. The decals could even be wrong for the year. But I know I made a lot of corrections to this bike to try to get it more in line with 1988, which significantly enough was the last year of Redline themselves before it became Seattle Bike Company. So 1988, 89, Seattle Bike Company had acquired Redline and moved production. So this was the last of the traditional Redline RL-20II, as best as I believe and understand. So tried to make this come correct and as best I could. So let's talk about what's right, what's wrong, areas of improvement. But overall, I gotta tell you, this is just one enjoyable rider. It's super comfortable, it's super smooth. It's an RL-20II. What else can you say? So let's go through it. On the wheels, ground up, we have Panaracer tires. So these are the repop Panaracer freestyle street tread. These are super nice. Got the black with the tan gum walls, and they're just a super smooth ride. 20 by 175. So they're not your widest tire, but in an old school tire, I like them. I think they're just again very absorbent on the road and really smooth for the riding surfaces along asphalt and street. So enjoy them for that. Like these, and pretty satisfied with those. Inside we have Peregrine 48s. So these are P48s. In fact, what's unique here is we have a Freecoaster on the rear. So you'll notice that there's a coaster brake, but you can pedal backwards. So this was a little bit of the newer variation. I'm remembering when Freecoaster actually meant the kind that you could adjust, and it either was a coaster brake or you turned a couple of screws and it freed up the hub and allowed it to be a freewheel. And I believe that traded as the same name just for a year or two. But now what we know as a Freecoaster today is that you can pedal backwards, but the point is if you're in air and you're landing, doing tricks, street, flatland, and you need to keep your pedals in the same place, they will stay without spinning backwards on their own if you're not holding them. So it's kind of cool, and this was a year they were introduced. In fact, I got it thinking that it was the old school Freecoaster, and I could have actually switched from coaster to freewheel. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's pretty cool, and you just got to be aware of that difference when you're riding and pedaling. But a lot of people love Freecoaster, and I'm cool with it, right? I like coaster, I like freewheel. What's not to like about a Freecoaster? So there you go. That's my explanation of it. I'm sure there's much better out there because I'm not a Freecoaster expert, but kind of got the idea because honestly, originally I thought something was wrong with the bearings and started taking it apart, and I love coasters, so I know how to put a coaster brake on, and I was kind of realizing this had a little different mechanism. Kind of started reading it a little bit, because really a Peregrine 48 in just a coaster would almost be impossible to find, let alone a traditional Freecoaster. Someone would have had to re-spoke the hub around that, so that would have been a personal preference. So someone obviously did that with this one. I think it was rebuilt with the Freecoaster is my guess, but I'm not sure, right? Like I said, just wanted the P48s, and I saw the Freecoaster available, so I said, okay, we'll put that on here and keep it correct. So that is catalog correct for an 88 RL-20II. So moving up to the midsection, we have the Redline cranks. These are obviously repops, but they work, the Redline, and they're nice cranks, but they are repops. So take that for what it is. But On the pedals, we got VP 747s with the clover leaf. So these are nice knockoff bear traps, but they definitely work. Grip your Vans, hold you on tight. Got a Redline compact disc, 44 teeth, so that would be correct for this. Moving on up, we have the Peregrine seat clamp with the Redline decal on it. I think that Redline decal is probably a little bit custom and not correct. I just never really took it off. You know, once it kind of toned down a lot of the other stuff, that wasn't horrible for me, so just kind of left it. But you know, I do believe that's a Peregrine donut clamp. Fluted seat post, straight. Very important to have a straight seat post on a Redline RL-20II. Otherwise, you'll bend your seat mast post because there's just already so much angle there. You don't need it to be laid back, right? And it looks pretty sharp with that straight post. So enjoying that. And Redline seat on there. I believe that's a Velo. Probably a little bit more early 90s is my guess. It could be late 80s with that Redline stamp, but I'm not sure. But it's correct enough. And especially with the right seat post on there, looks a lot better. Earlier it had a more of a 90s Redline post, so changed that out, went with the fluted, and it looks just a lot more correct. So we definitely made some adjustments to this bike to get it, you know, more correct and appropriate for today, because just didn't want to show something that was just so far off the scale here. But let's move forward and we'll keep going through it, and then we'll circle back in summary. On the front, again, we got a P48 with Panaracer tires, and we got the right pencil pegs down low on this. I believe they're the right forks. I don't believe those decals are correct, and I'm sure we'll probably get some comments on that, so you know, don't hesitate. But I guess the idea is to go around the you know, the pegs. I'm just not sure they're even in the right position, but didn't really change those out or deal with that. Again, not keeping me up at night, you know, something cosmetic like that. You know, I'm more concerned with the componentry, just making sure that it's working together the way the bike was intended to be enjoyed, you know, the most correct way that the bike was meant to be ridden. And a lot of times if you just got parts that are mismatched, and you know, while that's okay if you got to put a build together and you're just trying to get something to ride, when you're really trying to test something and just get the true enjoyment out of that bike, it's nice to build it and understand what correct would be, and then make improvements, and then kind of jump off from there. You know, if you know something to be better than it was in 88, for example, you see it in the magazines, and a lot of the riders were making those changes. You know, that's great, because again, the catalog is really just sort of a starting point. It's a marketing piece, and you know, but it is a great reference just to know, because I'm certainly no expert on 1988 Redline RL-20II. Just wanted to enjoy this bike and ride it, and but it definitely needed to be corrected better. You know, this bike is really just in a unique class, and that sometimes leads people to have to, you know, go with a custom build. So if you take your time and you find the right parts and understand what you need, you can, you know, a lot of times get very fortunate. Talking 35-year-old bikes, sometimes you got to be patient, because you can't just go down to your local bike shop and, you know, pick up a part from 1988. But there are sources out there, and we'll talk more about that in the series. But it's great, and it's nice to do that, right? So this was in rider condition, but it needed to be improved. So as I was kind of getting those parts together, it was nice to go ahead and make those changes and get everything ready so it's presentable as it is here today. So rating this bike, you know, it's an RL-20II. It's super nice. I personally love all the 80s decals on it. You know, they just kind of work for me because I like the color, I like the lines, I like the, you know, the paint. It's nicely done. You know, I'm definitely going to give this an 8. I'm not going to go above an 8, and that's only because, you know, there's just so many little things that are not correct that I don't want to be a stickler for it, but you just got to call it for what it is. And trust me, an 8 is awesome for an 88, right? So loving this bike, and it's definitely not a knock on it. You know, it's just leaving it room for improvement, right? So moving on up, we got the front brake, and these are Compe Nippon up front, and in the back we got AD-990s, right? So they're essentially built in with the brake risers that are coming off of the frame. So terrible description of that, but that's what the 990s are all about. That was a little bit more later 80s for me, so I had to get used to them. But I like their stopping power, and they're actually pretty simple once you figure out how to get the springs and everything right. They got really good stopping power, and again, I think that's kind of because it's got a fulcrum tied to the frame itself that's just much stronger, and you know, it's got a nice wider pad, so it does a good job of stopping. You know, typically see that on your 87s and 88s, but definitely, you know, anything from an 88, you know, forward, much more common, and still to this day. So I enjoy that on these brakes, and did the POTS mod on the front. Originally didn't even have a front brake on here and needed to get that done, and I had to change out the stem. So that's actually a Redline Forklifter 6-bolt stem, probably a little bit earlier 80s than an 88 would have. I'm not sure if it would have been a 6-bolt still in 88. I'll have to check that out on the catalog again. But to me, that's a freestyle stem, has the POTS mod. Originally had a racing stem on it, so I needed to change that out so I could get the front brake on there properly. And real pleased with that. The bars are Forklifter, real nice shape, pretty shiny, and cleaned up well. The grips are actually Oakley repops, 2010 I believe, B1Bs with donuts on them. Super nice grips, love that. Got one Tech 77 lever on the rear, and should have a matching for the front, but not exactly sure where I put it, because it's definitely not on the bike, but put a 128 on there, which is working close enough. You see similarities where, you know, the Tech 7 I believe is actually the correct one. Tech 77 I think is the repop, and so that's a repop lever anyway, but the 128's nice for the front. And all in all, like I said, I think this bike is an 8 all day long. Love it. I hope you do too. Feel free to share any comments or tips and, you know, digs on it. But I really enjoy riding this bike. It's just super smooth. These late 80s bikes, to me, you know, they just put a lot of, you know, got a few years of team riders and tours under their belt, and they're making, you know, subtle changes to the componentry and so forth. I'm pretty sure the geometry, you know, stayed the same in 85, 86, 87, 88. Could be totally wrong on that, but I noticed this one is definitely just got the laid back look to it without having a laid back seat post. Just awesome geometry, so it's just nice and roomy. It's a great rider. Can definitely, you know, haul around town on this, and going to get some good looks and have some fun and enjoy yourself. So hope you've enjoyed this video here on day 18, Radville BMX 30-day, 30-bike, old school BMX challenge. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you get a chance to subscribe. We plan to have some other cool features throughout the series, and planning something nice for the 30th here. So stay tuned, and thanks again. Take care.